Hi everyone, I'm Alejandro Garcia. Well, the time period that I choose is between 1861 to 1865 in United States. I choose it because I consider that this war interesting, but beyond being a war, I consider or I focus on the things that Abraham Lincoln did, because as you know, being in a war involves uh, economic crisis, disasters, bloodthirsty environment. So beyond it, I focus on the more important things that Abraham Lincoln did and how the ways that he solved the problem or he made his decisions. So it is the main topic.
The reason for the American Civil War was mainly for the compromising differences between the free states and the slave states. I mean, the north of the country and the southern part. All the stressful environment started in 1854 when Abraham Lincoln had lost a Senate race in which he demanded a, a stop of the expansion of the slavery. But then in 1860 he and Douglas clash again, but in this time as the Republican and Democratic presidential candidates. By then the tension between the North and the South was extreme. Basically they were ready to start the war. The Southern states saw Abraham and Republican making enormous changes to their way of life using the free slave labor. Then, when Lincoln became president, 11 Southern states seceded rather than give up their system and their way of life. Then, when Lincoln became president, 11 Southern states seceded rather than give up their system and their way of life. Let me bring a friend in order to give you a better explanation. In those years, each side was living different contexts. If we analyze each context, we will find that first the southern states were virtually all the money that they needed. They got it by the European cotton market. But also one advantage of these southern states was that the majority of the battles were in their own territory. This last point can be viewed in two different perspectives. And one person can tell that if we are fighting in our territory, can be more disasters because the buildings and the houses and all those stuff can be destroyed. But if we analyze other perspective, we can find that if we fight in our territory, we can know or work better with some space that you know. Finally, the war ends with the victory of the Republicans, with Lincoln as leader. He got the unification of the country, but also he got the emancipation of the slaves. In the world, in this time, was happening important events. For example, in Mexico, Benito Juarez returned to the as a presidential after he removes Maximiliano. Also, in Russia, the Tsar Alexander II abolishes the serfdom. Finally, I want to explain. I want to tell you that if I imagine living in the war, in this American Civil War, I will be exciting if I could work with the Republican politician as co-worker or working with Lincoln, because I consider interesting how they think and how the ways that they solve the problem, how they work together, and finally they got the emancipation of the slaves.